Hello, this is Dr. David Bilstrom from the International Autoimmune Institute and the Autoimmune Lifestyle, and this is Did You Know? Coming to you from beautiful University of Wisconsin-Madison again. Madison, Wisconsin. Got Lake Monona behind me, the whole city behind me. Lovely place. And this is a third in a series regarding the Annals of Internal Medicine article that just came out in April of 2022 about the preconception use of metformin, the blood sugar medicine, very poor blood sugar medicine, within the 3 months before conception in men, and the 40% increase in birth defects in the offspring. Oh my goodness, that is huge, right? And as I told you before, we try to get everybody off metformin because it's got a profoundly negative impact on the tight junctions in the gut, creates an intestinal permeability disorder, drives autoimmune disease, toxicity, et cetera, food sensitivities. So you got to get rid of anything that's going to bug the gut that bad, right? So, sort of in summary, okay, so they said, well, hey, we've seen this in fish, we've seen this in rats. This is a study, 19 years, 1.1 million people in Denmark, and they say this profound stuff. Now, the editorials that came in the Annals of Internal Medicine go, well, you know, we're going to need to confirm this. And we talk, what do you mean, like another 19 years and 1.1 million people before we make an idea? We've seen it in fish and rats and humans. Geez, what else do you need? Oh, well, you know, it's not time to change sort of how we do things. Well, why is that? And then they say, well, we're going to need to look into the mechanism of action. Now, as an expert in reversing and preventing all autoimmune disease, but remember, what causes autoimmune disease? Autoimmune disease causes everything, so you can fix about anything and prevent about anything. But for you that have watched these videos, you that have read the book, you that have taken the course, you know this stuff like the back of your hand, right? You say, well, the only way a medicine used before conception can impact the offspring has got to be through epigenetics, right? Makes sense. When it's a man's epigenetics altering offspring, it got to go through the mitochondrial genome, right? When it's a woman's epigenetics impacting the offspring, it's got to be through the nuclear genome. And so you say, well, they say, well, we got to see what the mechanism of action is. We go like, well, I think we already do, right? So I looked up, you know, so I'm like, okay, so what impact does metformin have on mitochondria? Easy. Got my handheld computer right there, my phone. I didn't know exactly because I always went, you know, tight junctions, gut disruption, this kind of stuff. So I go, okay, this should be easy to figure out. And then sure, here's this big article I mentioned yesterday from Cell Biology, January 10th, 2017, the assembly pathway of mitochondrial respiratory chain complex 1. Because I looked up and it's, oh, it impacts this part of the mitochondria. And I go, well, that's innate immune system for one thing, but also that's the epigenetics, right? And so what does that mitochondrial respiratory chain complex 1 do? It is a huge enzyme involved in a huge amount of work in the mitochondria. In mitochondrial genome and nuclear genome. And I go, oh, there's that connection probably. We don't know. Nobody's done 19 years, over 1 million people to look at this in women, but this is just how epigenetics works, right? So you figure it probably, and then here it is right there in this article. Well, it's going to throw off the same thing in nuclear DNA. Mothers passing it on to the children, right? Now, you also know that if you're passing things on to the children through epigenetics, you're really passing it on to the next 6 to 8 generations, right? So that's profoundly troublesome to me, of course, because we want to change the way this is all done, and we want to get people healthy, optimize their epigenetics before conception so they can pass on cleaner genes to the next 6 to 8 generations. So you say, well, it's easy to criticize, you know, this kind of stuff. Well, what do you do? What can you do instead? Well, one thing I say is, geez, you know, type 2 diabetes takes 10 to 20 years to become that once it started. So it's easy to see 10 to 20 years before, more than enough time to turn around. We tell people, don't worry, it'll just turn around by itself as we fix the big picture, right? So you need certain nutrients, right? You need magnesium, you need vitamin D, you need zinc for the insulin receptors on all the cells of the body to make them sensitive so the insulin can do its work. The hormone symphony. Well, the gut's thrown off so you don't get the nutrients, right? So you get this whole hormone symphony. Right in the middle of the hormone symphony is a really tight triad: insulin, blood sugar, cortisol, and thyroid. So whenever you see insulin, blood sugar thrown off, like You might want to use metformin, let's say. When you say, what's going on with cortisol? And that's throwing off thyroid too. Well, you become a bad thyroid converter because of vitamin deficiencies, toxicity, cortisol, standard American diet, eating too many carbs, not enough protein. What's causing the stress? Oh, it's probably chronic infections, because all disease is chronic infections and inflammation. So probably infections, vitamin deficiencies, hormone imbalances, the gut's thrown off and not happy, you probably got toxicity, all these kind of things. And so you say, well, you take care of these, you'll just fix this all by yourself. No problem, no problem. You just fix it by yourself. Well, every once in a while, that doesn't happen, so you gotta do something. Well, if you gotta do something specific, Dr. Bilstrom, do you use metformin? Of course not, right? Do you use insulin? Do you use the medicines that increase insulin production? Well, no, because typically the insulin resistance is type 2 diabetes. Their pancreas is making extra insulin. The problem isn't that pancreas can't make extra insulin, it's the receptor sensitivity issue. So what do? Well, you'll probably remember this. Remember the amazing triad. And if you want to look at my blog post, when some of this information first came out, I did a blog called Vitamin D Does It Again, and it's vitamin D receptor resistance in the gut. So the triad of vitamin D, probiotic, and butyrate, such as the butyrate complex we use, we've used that forever because it rebalances the immune system, gets rid of the autoimmune stuff, allergies, asthma, eczema, gets rid of infections and cancer. Infections don't get back in again. But all the original data said, oh my goodness, this is exactly what you want to do to prevent diabetes, metabolic syndrome, heart attacks, strokes, hypercholesterolemia, hypertension, dementia, Alzheimer's, cancers, all that kind of stuff. So this is a profound one. And then about 2 years ago, the article came out that called this triad a nuclear bomb against metabolic syndrome. We got a nuclear bomb against this stuff that, all by the way, it reverses autoimmune disease, helps prevent cancer, helps prevent heart attacks and strokes and dementia and Alzheimer's, helps prevent anxiety, depression, all that kind of stuff. So why would you use a medicine with these profound negative impacts? Doesn't do a whole lot anyway. Doesn't fix the big picture. It doesn't fix why you really got, this insulin resistance, this metabolic syndrome. Of all the things that could have caused it, which we just went over, one thing it's not a metformin deficiency, okay? This is why that study that just came out said insulin didn't do this. Medicines, sulfonylureas, that increase insulin production, they don't do the same thing as metformin. Well, those guys are working through bioidentical hormones, insulin, right? Always bioidentical, it's best, that's what the body likes. Metformin is not bioidentical, right? The body knows the difference, right? And here's something that creates terrible problems, not bioidentical, you just do it, you get the body to do it itself, you are good to go. So once again, thank you from Madison, Wisconsin. Oh, by the way, sectionals for the Ultimate Frisbee team, women's Belladonna, went on this weekend in Madison, and they beat UW Oshkosh, they beat UW La Crosse, and they beat Marquette. 15-2, 15-1, 15-3. They played very well, and off they are to the regionals. Take care. We'll talk soon. Bye now.